Hi, Johnny again with the Economic Trucker. Thanks again for tuning in and watching these video series. And in this one, I want to talk about taxes. In earlier videos, I talked about how it is that by understanding our currency and our money and the power we have in our money, that we could use that to get a raise. Okay? Again, let me make it perfectly clear. I'm not talking about starting a union in the trucking industry. That's not what I'm trying to do. It's not what I want to do. That's not my intention at all. What I am talking about is for the truckers using the trucking industry as a springboard to educate the American public on the power they have with their currency, their money. Now, how does this relate to a raise? How does this relate, understanding macroeconomics, how does it relate to you raising your standard of living? Well, let me start out with taxes. Why the federal government taxes its people, and how it is that having this understanding through the correct policies can give you a raise. A long time ago, when we had the colonies, we had people that exchanged things, and we didn't have money, right? We didn't have currency. What we had was furs and beads and whiskey and whatnot to trade in order to converse in commerce, right? The federal government, the colonies got together and said, you know what? I need a standing army to fight the British, okay? And it was, for an example, right? For example, the state of Connecticut, the 13 colonies, I guess it was Connecticut, Massachusetts, New England, right? One of those states had a company who made uniforms. And another of the 13 colonies, one of the 13 states, had a company that made ammunition. And then one other had a company that made guns. Well, the colonies at the time needed all these resources in order to defend itself. But the federal government had a problem. The colonies had a problem, and that problem was that they didn't have Virginia bucks, they didn't have New England dollars, and they didn't have Connecticut, New Hampshire, Connecticut dollars, because each of these communities, each of these colonies had their own currency, their own money. So in order to provision the government, again, they didn't need the money, but what they needed was the resources in order to defend the country, right? They needed the people that made the uniforms, that made the ammunition, and made the guns in order to buy from these companies so that they could defend the colonies, right? So the only way they could do this is establish a currency, a national currency, and to tax the people, okay? So what the federal government did is that, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think that they have to get money first and then pay their taxes, and that's not at all how it works. In order to pay your taxes, the federal government has to spend the money into existence. Once they spend the money, now you have the dollar, now you can pay your tax. See, that's how it actually works. A couple of YouTube videos on modern money theory will illustrate this through bus fares, or through the train station in New York. When you go and when you want to go from one side of the city to the other side of the city, they give you a token to put in the train slot, right? The slot to go. It's not like you get the slot first and then you put it in there and you go. They have to give you the slot, the little tokens, in order to put it in order to go. That's exactly how the federal government works. They have to spend the money into existence, put it out in the economy, then the people take that money and then buy whatever it is they need. So the federal government taxes the people in order, for one, to drive the currency so that everybody will be on the same page as to what they're paying for, what they're using for money, and number two, to provision the government. Again, what I mean by provisioning the government isn't the fact that they need money. No, they need the resources. They need the companies that pays for that makes the uniforms, the ammunition, the guns, so on and so forth, right? That's how they provision the government. So these are the reasons for taxes. Another reason for a tax is to regulate the economy. When the economy is too hot, they tax. When it's too cold, they stop taxing. Right now, a lot of people are talking about taking out FICA taxes altogether. Don't pay the federal government a penny of taxes, because why do they need it? They don't need, number one, we all know that the federal government does not need our taxes to pay for anything, right? And we're in a debt deflation right now. People are broke. They're in debt to the bankers because, there's another video that I got, and Modern Money Theory will teach you how that happened. But the point is that the taxes drive the currency, and regulate the economy. Now, how does that affect your bottom line? How does that affect you getting a raise? We can say with this information that taxes create unemployment. Taxes create unemployment. If the federal government didn't tax us, then we would use our own currency and we would have our own means of exchanging and commerce, and we would all be employed basically, right? But because the federal government is requiring us to pay a tax in their unit of account, because they're requiring that, then we have to find labor, find work in order to pay that tax, right? Now, what happens when the private sector doesn't or can't afford or don't hire the private sector to work? You have a lot of unemployment, right? It is the government, the federal government's obligation, therefore, to hire the unemployed. Now, there's a program modern money theorists talk about. It's called the buffer stock, or a jobs guarantee program, very much like what FDR did in the 1930s when we had the Depression. What happened? We were in the Depression. We had a debt deflation. People were broke. They're starving. What did FDR do? He went out and he hired people in the private economy and paid them a living wage. What did that do? That raised, that boosted the economy. People started buying things. People had money in their pocket, and we got out of the Depression. Okay, so what the job guarantee does is a lot of amazing things. Number one, it gives the working man and woman mobility. Right now, a lot of people in America are stuck at living where they live because the only job they can get is a job that gives them health benefits, and they can't go anywhere. They're not mobile. They don't have enough money. They're afraid to move because it's not that easy to get work. But with a job guarantee, which is focused on the local community and what the local community's needs are, right? Like, I live in Arlington, Texas, and the city of Arlington decides that we need a big landscaping project, right? And we need to hire a lot of people to clean up the city, you know? The jobs guarantee would be run in such a way that it would look at the community and ask the community, what is it that you need done in this community? And the community would therefore tell the federal government, this is what I need done. And the federal government would therefore give funds to the city so that the city can go out and hire those people that are unemployed, willing and able to work, but can't work because the private sector, number one, don't want to hire them because they've been unemployed for too long, or number two, they don't have the skills to do so. And they hire, the federal government then hires them at a living wage. Now, this is the important thing right here. This is the kicker. This is what's going to raise your standard of living. Once the federal government starts a jobs guarantee program and starts to hire those people, we get full unemployment at a living wage. What is the private sector going to do? The private sector is going to have to match that living wage, right? Now, we're not talking about the kind of wage that affords you Cadillacs and whatnot. We're talking about a decent standard of living. Right now, I would say that should be $24 an hour at 8 hours a day. Once that happens, then the private sector has to compete with the federal government. Well, a lot of people say that's crowding out. That's crowding out. No, it's not. All we're doing is providing a buffer stock for the private sector. Whenever they're ready to hire and the economy starts to boom, starts to pick from the best out of that pool of workers that have been working for the federal government now in the jobs guarantee program. This has already been done. It was done in Argentina a couple of years ago, and it was just hugely successful. And it was done in the 1930s in America during FDR. So that is how doing a jobs guarantee program will raise your standard of living. You see, right now, corporations have leverage over the working class right now, in the sense that there are 13 people behind you right now, ready and able and willing to take your job if you find that you're not making enough money, right? In the trucking industry right now, I think the turnover rate is 100 and something percent. There are a lot of people unemployed. Although our government statistics won't say it, it's true that we've got a lot of unemployment. They don't count a lot of things like people stop looking for work, right? So by having a buffer stock, by having a jobs guarantee program, we raise the minimum wage. Labor now has leverage over corporations. Corporations are competing for labor. This is what happened in the 1930s. This is the golden years of Keynesianism. where people prospered for 20 or 30 years between the 1940s and the 1960s, right there up to the 1970s. People were buying homes, or buying cars, or buying refrigerators. People prospered. Kids were getting educated. That has all changed. Why? Well, for a lot of reasons. Neoliberalism came in and decided to privatize everything. They thought profits over the community was more important. Right? This is our enemy, neoliberalism. So this is how understanding modern money theory and how the power of your money and currency, how you could use that power to turn it around. But we have to do it in solidarity. The goal here is to make sure that whenever that politician starts to say, we can't afford single-payer health care, we can't afford to educate your children, we can't afford a jobs guarantee program, the answer to that question is no. I understand federal finance. We can afford anything we want in our currency. Don't tell me you can't afford it. Tell me rather why you don't want to do it. Modern money theory, again, is apolitical. You could be a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, an Independent. It doesn't matter. Modern money theory is how sovereign countries issuing its own currency spends and taxes its people. Rhetoric we will always have from our politicians. What we want from our politicians is, instead of this outrageous, out of reality, stupid rhetoric that makes no sense at all, tone it down. Give me some good rhetoric, because again, we're gonna get rhetoric. Get it a little bit more to reality. Your rhetoric. Give us some halfway decent, good reasons why you, as a Republican, don't feel like it's important to have single-payer health care, or don't feel like it's important to have a jobs guarantee program. Give me those reasons. Have rhetoric on that. But don't tell me this bullshit that you can't afford it, because we know better, and the word is out. So share the video. Again, thanks you for watching. Remember, the YouTube channel is The Economic Trucker. Share the video, The Basics of Modern Money. It's going to be right up here, and I'm going to post another video that has a lot to do with the Jobs Guarantee Program. One of the leading proponents on this part of modern money theory is Dr. Actually, I think she's an associate professor, Pavlina Chernova. That's one of the teachers right now out of many who are pushing for a jobs guarantee program. Now, the other side of this is the universal basic income. And many in modern money theory believe that that's just a giveaway to the oligarchs. That we really, and all that is just giving people money. We're not about giving people money. That's not the smart way to do it. What we want is to give people a job so that they can be productive in the community. They can help the community, at the same time raise their standard of living, raise everybody else's. So this is how understanding modern money theory and the power you have with your currency, your money, could actually give you a raise. Again, and lastly, and make it very clear, this is not about starting a union in the trucking industry. Not about that. What I am about is making the trucking industry understand the power they have with their currency and their money. Okay? Thanks for watching, and I'll post again. Thank you.